We've all had to hem some jeans once or twice in our lifetime. So I'm going to show you a really easy way to do this, plus a little cheating in between. So first thing I'm going to do is select my fabric C, which is our woven heavy, and our technique number 1. So the stitch length is automatically lengthened for me, which is what I'd want with thicker fabric. I'm recommending the B foot because that's what it shows. I'm going to stitch about a 5/8 seam allowance. So following the 15 millimeter wide seam guide on the throat plate. I'm going to first just go ahead and do a seam and kind of create what we're going to be going over. So I'm going to take this fabric and I'm going to open it up and I'm going to kind of press the seam over to the side. So it's over here on the left side. Now this is where I'm going to show you something you can cheat with, which I love. So I'm going to take the foot off and you can reach for your blind hem foot. Your blind hem foot is foot D as in Designer Diamond. And when you put that on, you're going to notice you have a small toe and a big toe. And they're not even. This is actually a cheat foot. So it's not really the optimum one to use, but it's the one you have. The one I would prefer to use for this little top stitching I'm going to do is your edge stitch foot. So let me show you what the results are going to be first. So I'm going to move my needle to the far left needle position. So choose stitch number 1. Set the foot down so the big toe is sitting on this side of the seam and the little toe is on the top part where there's 3 levels of stitching right now. Now what I'm going to do, we're top stitching this open. We're giving it a nice professional look, and yes, with pink thread. We're going to just run that right on down here. By having this groove in the foot allows me to get a perfect seam every time. That can be used so many places. Look how professional that looks. Every time I teach a class, people are amazed that they can sew so straight. I do not sew straight. I always have to have a foot or a guide or a line or something of that caliber. So this would be where, when you are working with this in a normal situation, use the edge stitch foot or edge joining foot as it's called, and you put the blade right down that groove and move the needle position. The difference here is that this foot you can use any decorative stitch, a side to side stitch, and center needle position if you choose to. So this is definitely the one. This is one foot. I always say if I could only have one foot out of all of the Husqvarna Viking feet, I would go with a utility foot. This is one foot I would not want to be without. I would prefer to have to make do with all the other fancy ones if I could have this one. So I always tell people that's the first one that I purchase if I don't have it already. So we're going to go ahead, put our regular foot back on, foot B, choose a center needle position. Now we're going to do that really thick seam. We've all seen it. We're going to take where we have to go through all 3 layers. Okay, now there's 6 layers, and now there's 9 layers. Okay, so what happens when you go up this big bulk is that sometimes your foot gets stuck. Now I will tell you, with the right needle, and actually too, put your straight stitch throat plate on, and that will help stabilize the needle even more. Now when you see them talking about top stitching, they mean top stitching. You want to sew from the top side. Yes, it's easier to sew back here, but you'll get a prettier stitch if your stitches are on the top of the fabric. Now I'm going to show you how you're going to use your multi-purpose tool to quickly get up and over this. Now honestly, we could go up and over this without any problem. But sometimes your fabric is even higher than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around. We're going to pretend we're coming back the other way. Okay, so when your foot starts to go up the mountain, I'm going to stop with my needle down, is you can use this tool to put in place underneath the foot and just slide it right up to the seam. See how it wants to stop there? So now when you're sewing, your foot is being leveled by the tool as you go across the tall plateau of your seam. Now before you get all the way off your seam, bring the tool to be in front of the foot and stitch onto the tool. Now eventually you got to stop here because otherwise you're going to stitch into, and I often see that happen in my classes. People have little sewing holes through their tool here, but really just enough so when you sew, your foot has cleared the back of that seam. And that really helps go up and over. Now notice you have a skinny side and a thick side, so depending on how thick you have to kind of go over, you can use either one. Now you'll notice you have perfect stitching across there with the stitches all the same length. So you you don't have to push it. You don't have to, and sometimes that breaks the needle. So when you go over it, it really helps make a difference there. So people are always amazed that that is what this tool is used for and how easy it is to go over a really thick seam.